Hey there, I'm Katie Cat, and this is our weekly AstroTarot. Thank you for joining me at Delaney's Well if you are on YouTube or checking out my videos on Facebook and Instagram. So this week we are in a time of contemplation and review around where we spend our energy and resources, as well as where we are in relationship matters. Now, I'm going to go through the cards first and foremost, and then I'll mention some of the astrological transits that are coming in through that, and then spend a little bit more time toward that. And at the end of the video, for those who want to take a better look at the astrological influences and how they're showing up right now in your own life by way of transit. Because what's interesting to me is a couple of years ago when I started doing these readings, and initially I was offering them daily, I saw this pattern with certain major arcana, and knowing that they are associated with different planetary bodies, I realized that they were kind of pointing to transits that we were working with that were more or less intense. And the key players this week are the players of Mercury and also the player Venus. Now, our opening card is the Six of Pentacles. So we are learning to be more judicious around our resources, not just our financial resources, but also our time. And how we manage our time, because that is the ultimate resource that we have. We see this person who's carrying a scale, and they look to be casting out these coins to these two different people that are kneeling before them. And, you know, pentacles are interesting because in the tarot, they also represent our values, things that we put value to, not just monetary coins, but also things of some quality that we put an energetic toward. And there is some question in this energy around where we give ourselves away and where we maybe cast away our own values. The challenge that we had coming in today showed up as the Lovers card. So this is a major arcana that is associated with Gemini and the ruling planet of Mercury. And we see the Lovers as two people who are completely enveloped with one another, and it's showing up as our challenge because it's also speaking to this level of choice and whether or not we are being ultimately true to ourselves and where we've been called to task in that. Now, it's interesting because Mercury, which governs Gemini, is in Virgo right now. And Virgo, and it's actually at close proximity to Mars. So there is this kind of meeting of the planets of Mercury and Mars together in Virgo right now. And Virgo is an energetic of our day-to-day affairs, what our daily routine is. And we may be evaluating, you know, if the routine that we've been in is in alignment with our true self. And we have to make a choice over how we're going to navigate through that. And if we're going to, you know, choose the higher or lower road, so to speak. And it's being examined because consider that Mercury governs Virgo, and it's actually the ruling planet over Virgo. So in a lot of ways, it's the ruler of that house, and Mars is in its house, wherever it is in your chart, kind of creating some stimulation and some aggression and some agitation. And so it's bringing this new light to how Mercury, our planet of communication and our mental center, and also how we travel and how we learn about things in life and through life experiences, it's kind of shaking that energy up. And consider that Mercury is going to be going retrograde in about a week's time. When exactly does it go retrograde? On the 22nd. Oh, yeah, 22nd or 23rd, depending on where you are, of August. And in that time, when Mercury goes retrograde, it's going to be a time where we need to really slow down and review what we're signing up for, right? And if that is in alignment with what we feel like we are here to do, are we honoring our true self? And so this is the challenge that we're working with. And I think in a lot of ways, we're seeing what that is, or we've already seen what that is. Now, the way that we move through that challenge came in through the Eight of Cups, which is an abandonment of some kind of emotional situation. We see that someone is walking away from this grouping of 5 cups as well as this additional grouping of 3 cups, and they're walking into the mountains toward this full moon. And, today we're at a new moon, and yet we are in a place where the moon is, because it's a new moon, conjunct the sun, but it's also in really close proximity to Venus, which is retrograde, and they're in the sign of Leo. So there is this kind of navigating through some kind of space of the heart that has been happening, and this card is speaking to an energetic of asking us to go inward and really evaluate how we feel in a situation rather than relying on external influences. And then the way that we get through the situation came in as the Justice card, clarified by the Ten of Pentacles as well as the Queen of Swords. So, we're in another situation here where we see another character who's holding out some kind of scales of measurement for some sense of judiciousness or fairness in a matter. And the Justice card is a card of relationship and contracts and, coming to another decision or choice with all information being considered. It's also a card of relationship, and it's governed by Venus. So it points again to that energetic of Venus being retrograde. And what's so interesting is that we're going to have Mercury come out of retrograde the very 1st of October, and then we're going to have Venus come out of retrograde around, I think, the 10th of October or the 7th of October. So there is this like internal process that's happening right now that is very picturesque of what's happening in this Eight of Cups card, where we're in this place of finding our own light in times of darkness, finding what our own sense of self is and our own truth, and listening to that and honoring that. And it's important because Venus is the planet of senses, right? And for me, myself, I tend to be a very sensitive human being, and perhaps it's because my moon is in Leo and it's actually being aspected by this Venus transit of retrograde. It's also, the Venus transit is also squaring my natal Venus transit retrograde, but I often joke that I am a maple tree as part of my nature, and that I'm full of sweet water, and that it's easily tapped because I am a very emotionally sensitive person. And yet, it's important for us to listen to our intuitive sense and listen to how our nervous system responds and engages in in each different situation. And if, for instance, we feel closed down or reserved in a situation, and protective, or if we feel safe and warm and able to open up, and that kind of feedback from the senses can give you some additional information to navigate through, aside from the conversations and the things that people say. Now, the Justice card does represent Libra in a lot of ways, and so does the Queen of Swords. So there is an additional mention of like how important it is to have fair and honest communication, and openness in communication, and also have, a sense of relationship in that, of a sense of we, rather than the sense of ego and sense of me, because we see that there's this Queen of Swords energy, which is kind of welcoming in someone else into the conversation. But there's also this interesting aspect of the Ten of Pentacles, which is hinting to the fact that if we want to build something, we have to put energy and effort towards building it. Otherwise, if we just reach a certain peak and we stop giving it energy, there's this sense of laziness that can ultimately be our demise. And so the Ten of Pentacles is another representative of this earth energy. And so it points again to things that are going on in earth governed houses. So again in Virgo, we have Mars and Mercury that are close conjunction, but they are in a trine aspect, so a 90-degree relationship to Uranus right now, which is at 22 degrees. So there's this energetic of change and unexpected shifts that is, showing you kind of where things are at, like how people show up through different situations. And, if they show up in a way that is supportive, or if they show up in a way that's destructive. And that's part of what engages us in this energetic of being able to decide and make a choice over which direction in life truly honors us and our path. Now, it's interesting because we ended on this card of the Queen of Swords, and it's kind of calling to another card energetically, and I ended up pulling 2 additional cards, and the ones that I drew were the Three of Swords and the Three of Cups, which are really opposite energies. And I think it's interesting for those 2 energies to show up in a series that are reminding us that we have to put energy and effort toward that which we want to grow, and to not grow lazy in a situation. And then we have those 2 energetics of the Three of Cups and the Three of Swords kind of juxtaposed, because we have 3 people who are dancing around with 3 cups versus 3 swords stabbing through a heart in a rainstorm. And to me, that is telling that we're always going to have to go through some sort of hardship in life, and we'll always have moments of happiness. And we have to understand that everything is in movement and everything is in motion, and we can't grow lazy with expecting that everything is going to be, in this elated happiness space all the time. But we have to be, willing to understand that there are going to be storms, because the first card that came out was this Three of Swords, which is, surrounded by all of these rain clouds, and then the Three of Cups followed. So it's like you have to be able to go through the storms to realize what the beauty is in life. And I think that if you've ever gone through a hard storm, you can realize that reflection in nature, but we don't always